Breakthrough Media.
Come on, man.
I think we got him through this term. We would always show shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric.
We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's propaganda.
I think what we did, we got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out.
Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear, like climate?
Yeah, fear sells. Fear sells. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
And what is it you do?
Technical director, it's one step down from director.
It's going to be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office. Without saying it, that's what it was. Trump his hand was shaking or whatever, and he was losing it. He's unfit. We were creating a story there. So that's I think that's propaganda.
So I'm standing here at 30 Hudson Yards. Warner Media is in right there. That's CNN's corporate headquarters. We're in New York City. Jim Sciutto just walked out. Funny enough, I asked him about the videos we have just obtained of a CNN director, Charlie Chester, on tape. For years, we've heard that CNN is the most trusted name in news, but a CNN director is on tape telling us that they're propaganda, helping a certain political candidate, employees admitting what we've always known to be true. This time, it's on tape.
I think what we did, we got Trump out. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have got voted out. I really don't think so.
Oh, really? I think if COVID hadn't happened, it wouldn't have mattered what covered, and Trump would still be in office.
I came to CNN because I wanted to be a part of that.
So Chester says that CNN is responsible for getting Trump out of office and helping Biden through his term. Listen to this tape. Chester and Hoffman believe CNN managed to get Trump out of office, their words, and Chester calls CNN propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, like Trump, we did it. Like when Trump was, I don't know, like his hand was shaking or whatever like that. We brought in like so many medical people to like all tell a story that like it was all speculation. That he was like neurological damage, like that he was losing it. He's unfit to, whatever. We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's propaganda. We had nothing else to run with at that time. We were like just taking shots off the bow, just hoping something would hit.
I guess I have a confession. I worry about Biden and his health, I guess.
Your news health?
What? I said Biden, our president. Like I want to just like literally. I just want to like take care of him and make sure he's okay. Like
he's definitely the whole thing of him running during the entire run for the campaign, showing him jogging was obviously a deflection of his age, and they're trying to make it like I'm healthy.
Is that what we did? I don't know. Like, what do you mean?
We would always show shots of him jogging, and that I'm healthy, blah blah blah, and him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric. I like so many arguments about like my dad be like, you're voting in Kamala Harris because he's gonna die in the presidency, and I'm like, that could die.
Right, I don't think he's gonna
But
die.
I'm okay with that.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I think she could
She'd
be
probably
a bitch.
be better, but
She probably could be a bitch in like a board meeting, and you'd hate her as a boss. But she's real and better than what we've had.
Right.
Regardless.
yeah.
I don't see. I think we got him through this term.
Even after Biden was sworn in, CNN still seemed to maintain a bias in the reporting, according to Chester.
And And then so there are complaints that like we're not covering that Biden tripped up the stairs.
Oh, did you?
Like we talked about it briefly, but
But you talk about that briefly. You don't make that a huge
okay. So, but
story.
the fact that we talk about the Trump tripping is a bigger nuance. It's a nuanced conversation because that's a sign
Did we harp on Trump tripping? I think we talked about it a little bit. As long as we talk about it a little bit with Biden, then I think we're
like we didn't cover it at all on Dawn. Like we didn't talk about it. Whereas if it had been Trump tripping up the stairs.
Chester didn't just take credit for Trump's loss. He also alleges it was CNN's, quote, focus. They were focused on getting Trump out of office. Chester also believes that in the current news cycle, there is, quote, COVID fatigue. Chester saying that CNN has a game plan to fix that fatigue.
I think there's just like a COVID fatigue. So like whenever a new story comes up, they're going to latch onto it. They've already announced inner office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, climate like global warming, and like that's going to be our next like I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be our focus. Like our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be like constantly showing videos of like decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy and really
Who
diving into
decides that?
the head of the network, like just
Who's that? Is that Zucker?
Zucker, yeah. I imagine that he's got his council and they've all like discussed like where they think
So that's like the next.
pandemic like story like that will beat to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or like it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. Probably think it's going to take years, so they'll probably be able to milk that for quite a bit.
So climate change overload. Okay.
Be prepared, it's coming. Stories, like right now, we had an inside track right now where two stories are going to be pushed. Climate change is going to be the next COVID thing for CNN. We're gonna hone in.
Focus on that.
I love it.
But that's a fair thing to focus on.
But to commit to that as a network,
You said it's going to be like the new COVID.
I feel like, well, that's the way it was built. Unless that was just a call to arms to get people to start writing and then we'll assess it. I don't know. But
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear, like climate?
yeah, fear sells.
Jeff Zucker, I think you need to change your motto, the most trusted name in news. Your own employees, your own director is on tape actually telling the American people what we all believe to be true. The question is,
Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was.
why isn't Charlie Chester willing to say the private part publicly? He'll say it privately, but he insists it's important to conceal it, to hide it from people. And that's the question, Mr. Zucker. Why is it so important to hide the truth of what you're really trying to do from the people?
COVID, gangbusters with ratings. Gangbusters with ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher.
It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in. If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious. What they're actually doing, telling the person what to say. It's an art form. It's always leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
What actually happens when a network cares more about ratings than the truth? In the case of CNN, owned by parent company Warner Media, it seems that CNN has resorted to other means in order to keep you watching. What you're about to see is so shocking. Admissions about COVID, its impact, the bias, and things that we've all suspected but have never been able to confirm until now.
It's fear. Like, fear really drives numbers. It does, you know? The happiest days in news, people, I would imagine, turn it off and then when they go with the family, they don't stay glued to it. You know? Unless there's something that's uniting them, like the moon landing or something like that. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in, I imagine. What's the scariest thing there?
You know, sad news doesn't do well with ratings. You know, like if you can get someone impassioned, that does really well with ratings. Sad news back to back to back doesn't do really well unless it affects them directly. COVID, gangbusters with ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side, which I have a major problem with, that we're tallying how many people die every day. Because I've even looked at it and be like, let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, you know, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. And I'm like, what am I rallying for? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That we're doing that, you know? Like,
Well, I mean, it helps with ratings.
of course, yeah, but yeah, I would expect. I have a job. Sure, like I'm happy about that, but yeah, I don't know.
Who gets to like decide how long that stays on, or like?
Head of the network. I've been in the room many a times where my director tells me take it down, and I take it down, and then we get a phone call, like the bat phone like rings in the back, literally a red phone, like this special red phone rings.
Yeah.
And they pick it up, and this producer picks it up, and you're mop, 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 mop. And every so often they put it on speaker, and it's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up, because that's the most enticing thing that we have. So put it back up. So like things like that are constantly talked about.
It's most likely a Jeff Zucker call. If Jeff Zucker, the head of our CNN, he makes the call, someone
Is that like the head of the network with the red bat phone? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in the first video, Charlie Chester and Rachel Hoffman gave us a first-hand account into how CNN's president, Jeff Zucker, really is on a minute-to-minute basis, even when it comes to graphics on the screen, COVID graphics. Charlie Chester referring to the red phone that rings to update the graphics, because remember, folks, it's all about ratings.
But why don't you guys at CNN show the recovery rates on the death tolls at least?
The recovery rates. Oh, who's had it and then recovered. Because that's not scary. I would imagine that's why they don't do it. Yeah.
That's what I figured.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yep.
I like that.
I think no one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious based on like the amount of stories that we do. Like the fact that we have a segment called The Good Stuff, which is a feel-good thing, but it's a dedicated moment at the end to like almost like be the ice cream to alleviate, you know, like everything that you've been through, like, you know, like something sweet to end it with. Because everything else is like doom and gloom. I mean, it's human nature. I mean, like I find myself watching more news when there's something looming and scary.
Chester seems to have lost faith in CNN's ability to do honest reporting, not just at CNN actually, but in news generally.
I mean, there's no such thing as unbiased news. It just doesn't exist. There's too many agendas. There's too many people that have jobs that need to feed their families for it to be unbiased. You can't. It's impossible. Of course, the most unbiased news is grassroots, out of people's basements with podcasts. That's the most unbiased you probably get. you know. And unfortunately, the trend is that when they could actually start making money off of it, you start to inherently destroy the thing that you love, you know, by like
Do you
moving
think
up.
CNN's done that?
Yeah. I don't think CNN's any different than Fox. I think it's on the different side of it, but I think they come off as very altruistic, but I think we bury the lead a lot. I think we.
What's that mean?
You ever watch? We have to sit down and watch it together for me to like point out some things. Listen to the way they ask questions, because they're not actually asking questions.
Who?
Any reporter on
this.
CNN.
Okay.
What they're actually doing is they're telling the person what to say. It's an art form in it.
What's it?
There's an art form to it, but it would be like the accident that you just saw, right? Like one of the reporters would be like, so that that man clearly went through the intersection, slamming into this car or whatever it was, and it really is unfortunate that our infrastructure of traffic lights and whatnot is falling apart in the city. How do you feel about the traffic lights and the infrastructure and whatnot? We've led them to talk about how we want them to talk about it. It's always like leading them in a direction before they even open their mouth. And the only people that we let on the air, for the most part, are people that have a proven track record of taking the bait. I think there's like an art to manipulation. I think some people have figured it out inherently, but
Like with the media, or just like in
media
general?
and in just conversations.
Yeah.
I think when like you ever meet somebody that like you feel like you're being gaslit by, start to listen to how they word things.
What do you mean?
Inflection, saying things like twice, like there's little subtleties to how to manipulate people.
What's the difference between doing that like on a one-on-one basis or like a widespread news organization?
Oh yeah, I mean it's enough to change the world. Yeah.
Isn't that the plan?
Yeah, there's a plan. I think this time it worked with like the Trump thing. But look at the other side, how devastated they were. So were we the good guys, the bad guys? Depends on which side you were looking at it, though. Yeah.
Chester is fully aware of the power that CNN has over people. His words should caution people everywhere who takes the journalism at these corporations seriously. He tells us not to take it seriously. Chester tells us explicitly how the news business works. Now, if you thought this was bad, stay tuned for the next one, because in the next one, Chester gives us CNN's roadmap to the reality that they want you to believe.
A bunch of black men that have been attacking Asian. What are you doing? Like we're trying to like help like with the BLM.
Charlie Chester will shock you even more. This time, we see Chester reconciling the truth that actually exists compared to what happens in his own network.
I was trying to do some research on like the Asian hate, like the people are getting attacked or whatever. A bunch of black men that have been attacking Asian. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like we're trying to like help like with the BLM and like we're gonna like, I mean it's individuals, it's not a people, you know. That's not good. The optics of that are not good. These little things like that are enough to set back movements, you know, because the far left will start to latch on and create a story of like criminalizing an entire people, you know, just easier headlines that way, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
So you're saying that the far left would label a whole genre of people? I kind of missed your point.
That like, no, the conservatives. I'm sorry, not the far left. But I've noticed that like you'll get headlines that might lump people together as opposed to focusing on the individual. I mean, that's what Trump ended up doing with like the China virus, and that puts so much flame on an entire group of people as opposed to, a few careless individuals.
Right, the actual source, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but is it normal for the media to like, so say there's a white shooter, black shooter, which one are we gonna, like?
Yeah, for the longest while, like the story was like, people were like lapping up that it was like, white guys for like so long. I haven't seen anything about focusing on the color of people's skin that aren't white. They just aren't saying anything. You know what I mean? They're just not. All of a sudden, that story loses a little steam, and they just like leave it be.
Why?
I don't know. I think it's got to be trends, like what people will latch onto.
You're telling your child, you're telling me, you're just saying like how media is the greatest weapon. Where were you gonna go with that?
I mean, it's just propaganda. Like you can really. Sorry, my chime just went off.
What do you mean by propaganda?
Like you can shape an entire people's perception about anything on how you do it, right? Like,
How do you do that?
just by like forcing a story to help like your platform. Like you can all of a sudden say like coal is the future of like energy. Well, that can be propaganda because like who owns the company might have stake in like coal mining. So like Trump getting blasted all over like constant feeds of like Twitter and Fox giving him a platform is what fueled that fire.
Is CNN the most trusted name in news? Their own employees are telling us that they're not. But the same employees that tell us that they're not are also participating in the propaganda that they're ashamed of. And that's perhaps the greatest tragedy of all. That Charlie Chester is willing to say these things privately. He's willing to say the quiet part out loud, privately. But they don't have the courage to say so publicly. And as Jim Sciutto told me when I was walking out of this door, he's been a journalist for 25 years. Well, Jim Sciutto, your own colleagues should have the courage to say publicly what they'll tell us privately. And if you're a journalist, you should stand up and do exactly that. Stand by the credo of journalism. Inform the people. You have an obligation and a duty to the people without fear or favor. I doubt Charlie Chester will be the last employee we hear from at CNN. Stay tuned, America.
Joining me now is my dear brother Maj Toure. He is the founder of Black Guns Matter. Maj, we often make the separation between the group, Black Lives Matter, and the people. So are you surprised about this? Because I know I'm not.
I'm not surprised by this at all. This part for the course, man. Listen, they got one playbook. The playbook has been exposed. The frustrating part is the fact that the American people still allow it. And I can't even say the American people are tricked by it. We allow it, right? So this isn't surprising. I mean, we're seeing big tech hide behind government, you know, Section 230, and basically manipulate. So no, this isn't surprising at all to me. Like, I think most Americans see, you know, the fake media that CNN actually is.
So, you know, we talked about Darren Seals and, you know, back on the ground in St. Louis and Ferguson when things were happening. But many people in the community have been calling them out, even CNN to their face. Check out this clip the other night where a person goes straight up to Sarah Seidner and lets her know the real deal. Check it out.
Tell me what you think about what's going on here.
What I think about this is all the press and all the extra y'all do makes this worse.
You think so?
Yes. When people want to protest, they shouldn't do it in front of a police, courthouse. Like that. You get what the I'm saying?
I mean, I know it was graphic, but it was real.
It was real, and the people in urban America, that's been the work of us at Black Guns Matter. We're tired. The reality is, people like you on Fox that are putting out a genuine message resonates with that demographic, okay? And now what's happening is, because of all of our smartphones and technology, we see it and we're being more vocal about it. These are our communities that are being manipulated by extreme left media, telling a story that's not accurate, and people that have conservative and libertarian-minded values in those urban centers outnumber the small amount of people that have been manipulating and doing things. And this is again, we've been seeing it for a long time, but now there's more and more people that look like me, that wear hoodies, that wear jeans, that don't always have on a suit and tie. They're being much more vocal about it, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, every time I see you got your Timberlands in, and you'll do it on Fox News, you'll do it out there in the street, and that's why you've been successful. But tell our audience about this libertarian movement, because you have the work, the show, you have the people that are behind you, and so I want them to know how you've been so successful at it.
So one, we deal in a very basic premise, and there's a very serious overlap between conservative principles and libertarian principles. Neither one of those are 100% perfect. Nothing is. Right. But basically, we all live by the premise of, you know, don't hurt people, don't touch their stuff, don't bother their things. I think all Americans, urban, suburban, rural, are there, and that's more of a libertarian, you know, philosophy in that regard. And I think there is that overlap, and we got to create that space, because we see that the left is going to become extremely, you know, all of the beefs that they have between their different types of feelings and their issues. When it's time to come address our freedoms and our liberties, they get on the same page. So I think it's very, you know, how we've been successful is making sure that that liberty message is there, but not isolating our brothers and sisters in the conservative movement as well, because we got to get organized. They have all of the media. You know, Fox is holding it down, but, you know, we in round 11, and it ain't much time left, so we got to organize, and those have to be liberty-based principles.
Maj, a lot of people don't know this about you, but you go around the country and you teach people gun safety. I mean, a lot of people talk about Chicago, Philly, Baltimore, and how to get control of those communities, but you go down there and do the work.
You can't, listen, if you call yourself a conservative, all of these conservatives that we see all over the television, right? If you don't see them actually doing work in black communities, white communities, Asian communities, brown communities, poor communities where it's needed the most, right? They're just talking. And it's no disrespect. No, actually it is. It is disrespect. If you're talking and not doing, no participation in me, I don't need you to really talk, you know? So we have to be there. These are the areas where leftist policies, especially in regard to gun control, which isn't about safety, have attacked and hamstringed those communities. Our work at Black Guns Matter is going there, educating the people, getting them to vote in a different direction, more in alignment with their constitutional and human rights, especially as it pertains to the Second Amendment. And these classes are free to all, you know? So we just love that everybody's continued to support. This message is for all Americans, but we have to do the work, especially around this violence issue. We have to do it in the areas, boots on the ground, where it's needed the most.
The brother that's doing the work, the great Maj Toure. Thanks, man.
Thank you, my brother.